Welcome, welcome to 2026. A whole new year, same podcast, same host. Tonight's episode's a little bit different. It'll be the first one of the new year. Tonight's guest was in the military, still in the military, has worked as a firefighter, and is currently working in law enforcement. Tonight's guest is somebody most of you know, I believe. It's me. I'm tonight's guest. Thank you for having me. Thank you for listening to me. I hope you guys are enjoying the podcast. It's been really fun to do this adventure. I still have no idea what in the hell I'm doing. And most of the time I am winging it and flying by the seat of my pants. So I don't know how tonight's episode's going to go. I'm going to kind of give you guys an insight into my story, where I started, how I got to where I am now. Maybe there'll be some funny shit along the way. It's a little bit different interviewing myself, rather than, asking somebody a question and then they tell their story and then I can bounce something off of them of something that I've done that relates. So tonight, we'll see what happens. But again, I want to thank all of you who have listened and are enjoying the episodes. Reach out, let me know what you like, let me know what you don't like, let me know what you want to hear. And if you got a story or you want to be on the podcast, reach out to me. Catch me on Facebook, my personal page, the podcast Facebook page, Instagram, all of that. You can find me. Reach out. Let's connect. Let's get your story told. So we'll get into it here. I joined the military back in the black boot military days. Those of you who've been around for a long time, some of you are still in the military. I originally enlisted in 2000, pre 9/11. If I would have stayed in, this would have been my almost 26th year. If I would have stayed in, I did come back, but we'll get to that later. I spent almost 4.5 glorious years with the 10th Mountain Division. And if anybody knows anything about different divisions in the military, active duty military, then you know that the sun never sets on the 10th Mountain Division. And it's a well-known fact. We are the most deployed unit in the military. There's always a unit out of 10th Mountain leaving, which it really wasn't that big to begin with. I mean, when I was there, we had 2 brigades and 6 battalions lined up down infantry row. A lot of good stories came out of the barracks at Fort Drum. I was second to the 87th, a storied battalion, a storied regiment. They trace their roots clear back to Colorado and Camp Hale, which is out near Leadville. If you've ever traveled to Colorado or you live in Colorado, go up to Vail Village sometime. There is a gigantic statue of a 10th Mountain ski soldier at the bottom of the hill. They did a lot of training out there. They spent a lot of time in Colorado before they ended up moving to their current location in Fort Drum, New York, upstate New York. Damn near Canada. We were about 30 minutes from the Canadian border. But I'll get to how I got up there in a minute. So when I joined in 2000, I think it's hard for me to remember, but I believe I was staying with my sister in Kansas City, and I came back to her apartment, I think it was. And she's like, "What'd you do today?" I was like, "Oh, I enlisted in the Army." She's like, "Holy shit, my parents are going to kill me." And she's like, "You stay with me for one night and you go and enlist in the military." So when I originally enlisted, I wanted to go psychological operations just because I thought it sounded cool. I scored high enough in the ASVAB to do so. The guy's like, the recruiter's like, "Oh, yeah, well, you can leave in like December." And this was in February. I'm like, what? I don't want to wait an entire year to go to basic. I was like, what gets me out of here sooner? He's like, oh, well, you can enlist right now and you'll leave in 2 weeks and you go infantry with airborne and ranger en route. I was like, done, sign me up, let's do it. And that's how I became an infantryman. That's how I went to airborne school. It was quite the adventure. As everybody knows, well, if you know the military, I guess, if you are in the infantry, you go to basic training at Fort Benning, Georgia, or whatever the hell they call it now. It'll always be Fort Benning, Georgia. I don't care who you are. Fort Benning, Georgia. I left. It was February 28th was my enlistment date. Went to Fort Benning, went to basic training. I've got to get some of my guys from basic training on the show because, especially my friend Buddy down in Florida. Buddy and I probably had the greatest basic training experience as anybody could. We we pulled basically every night you do fire guard for an hour. It's just you walk around the room and make sure the building doesn't burn down. It's really cool. And Buddy would do fire watch right before I did. And then he would stay up with me while I did mine. And we would proceed to fuck with everybody in the barracks or in the bay. We would tape dudes to their beds. Back then, you had to shine your boots, your black boots. And so everybody had an ammo can with your shoe polish kit. So we'd get tape and we'd wrap it around the ammo can that was always stored at the foot of your bed. And we'd run the tape up underneath the bed and over the top of the headboard or the bar that served as the headboard of the bed. And we'd like tape as softly as we could around somebody's wrist while they're sleeping, connect them to their ammo can. So as soon as they like figured out that something was on their wrist and they freaked out and they pulled their arm or they just moved in bed, they'd drag that ammo can clanking across the tile floor and make all kinds of ruckus. Yeah, Buddy and I used to do. We used to pick on people all night long, and I want to get him on the show so we can talk about those stories because they are probably some of the funniest stories that I've ever been around or witnessed or been a part of. So after basic graduation, went to like a holding battalion for a little bit, waiting on my slot for airborne school. Ended up going to airborne school in the summer, Fort Benning. And if anybody's ever been in Fort Benning in the summer, it is hot as hell. And did airborne school 3 weeks, probably the best 3 weeks of my military career. Airborne school is so much fun. I don't know why it was fun. I just enjoyed it. I mean, I went to airborne school with a bunch of guys that I just graduated basic with. We were all in really good shape. And I remember that they couldn't smoke you for more than 10 push-ups. And we didn't abide by their rules. So anytime they drop us for push-ups, you do the one or down, one, down, two, down, three, whatever it was. And rather than saying, or we would just continue, we wouldn't count. We would just continue saying one, 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 one. Then we'd start yelling, can't smoke a rock, can't smoke a rock. And so we tormented the black hats at airborne school because there was like 40 of us that were together in our airborne class. Ground week, you go ground week, you go tower week, then you go jump week. So ground week, you're just jumping out of, mocked up airplanes, not very far off the ground. You're learning how to do your PLFs, your parachute landing falls, hit, shift, and rotate. You're learning the black hats all the time. It'd be like, jumpers, hit it. And you'd have to, pretend like you're holding on to your reserve shoot and count 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. And then you'd like check canopy and check your risers, check canopy, whatever the scene was. And so you'd spend, 3 weeks doing that. The first week's ground week, second week's tower week. Tower week's kind of cool because excuse me. Tower week's kind of cool because you start off on the 34, I believe it's a 34-foot tower, and basically you jump out of this mocked up plane attached to a zip line, but you're dangling from the zip line, so it's not like you're really close to where your zip line is. Like you're dangling from like a pretend static line, like you're jumping out of the plane. So you jump out, put your feet and knees together, grab your reserve chute, you do your count, and then you check your canopy, pull your risers open, and then you basically zip line down to a berm, get off of it, get disconnected, and go back up and do it again. The culmination of Tower Week was doing I can't remember how tall they are, 200 and some foot towers, and they're gigantic. And if you look up Fort Benning or you look up Airborne School, you're going to see a picture of the towers. They were towers that were originally from the World's Fair, like the Chicago World's Fair or whatever it was. And it was a ride where they'd take people up on these parachutes and drop them. Excuse me. So they take in, I think they're 250-foot towers. I can't remember. Anyways, they hook you up to this contraption that basically holds your parachute open, and you're suspended underneath of it as you're getting, pulled up to the top of this tower. And you get up to the top of the tower, and the black hat yells at you to, say something cool, guy, airborne, whatever it was. And then you click your heels to let them know you're ready. And then they release release your parachute, and you basically parachute to the ground from 250 feet, which is kind of cool because you get a sense of what it's like to parachute, before you get to jump out of a plane. But it's also terrifying. And the reason they start you off on I think it's a 34 or 37-foot tower, whatever it is, and that's the threshold of where people who are scared of heights, that's the threshold. So anything greater than that, you're still going to have the fear, but they like to keep you closer to ground while you have that fear in case you freak out. Excuse me, my throat has got a tickle or something. So after Tower Week, move on to Jump Week. And if you're lucky enough, like we were, you get to be a 5 jump chump. You're supposed to do 4 jumps during the daylight, and then you do 1 night jump. Not a lot of the chalks got to do their night jump based on planes or weather or whatever it was. We were lucky enough to do all 5 jumps. So you're doing, your first jump. And I don't remember like my order in the chalk when I did my first jump. And honestly, I don't remember any of my jumps. It's such a blur. But you're jumping out of this plane, and you're going from like 0 to 260 miles an hour in a snap, just hitting the prop wash. It's like a car crash. The force of the wind that when you jump out that door, when it hits you, it just tosses you around. And then, you've done it for weeks now. You got your reserve chute in front of you, and you got your head down, got your feet and knees together, and you're counting to 4,000. And then all of a sudden, your chute's open, and you're, doing your little bicycle kick to untangle your risers, and you're just there under a chute, and it gets real quiet when the plane starts moving away. And it's probably one of the coolest experiences I've ever had was, after you get out of the plane and your chute opens, and you're just falling gently to the ground, and like the ground's coming up, and you can slip left, you can slip right, whatever you need to do to get out of the way of other paratroopers. And then you make your land, you pack your chute up, or you pop one side of your harness, and pack your chute up, go back to the staging area, and get ready to do it again. And I remember, so they give you a whole slew of commands when you're in jump school. You know, when you get into plane, you're getting ready to jump out. You know, they're stand up, hook up, check equipment. And then at the end of it, they're like, sound off for equipment check. And everybody, you know, you check your buddy in front of you and you smack them on the ass. And they do the same thing. And it goes from back all the way up to the front where the door is, where the jump master is. So when whoever the first person is, once they get slapped, they knife hand the jump master. They're like, okay, jump master. I remember I was number one out the door and came from back to front. I got my slap. They checked my equipment. I looked the jump master dead in the eye, knife hand him, and I said, oh, okay, drunk bastard. And I heard about it when I got on the ground, and I got smoked for 10 push-ups, because that's all I could do, because they were females and officers, so they couldn't do more than 10. And so don't ever call your jump master a drunk bastard, or do. I highly recommend it, just for the story for later. Night jump was crazy. You're just jumping out in the pitch dark. It's wild. Right after jump school, got my wings, stayed in Fort Benning because I had airborne and ranger en route. Back then, excuse me. Back then it was called RIP, the Ranger Indoctrination Program. So you go to 75th Ranger Regiment. You go through I think it's like 3 or 4 week indoctrination program. And basically all it is PT, road marches, lots of road marches. And I had a stress fracture in my foot from basic, and the stress fracture finally popped on one of the road marches, which deemed me completely useless to the Ranger Regiment. After that, I've got tickets to Fort Drum, New York, 10th Mountain Division. Had no idea where it was. Didn't have any idea about it or, about the unit. But upstate New York, if you ever get to go. Absolutely beautiful. Fort Drum is, up near the Thousand Islands region on the St. Lawrence Seaway, real close to Canada. It's funny. If you know anybody from New York City and you talk about upstate New York to them, they think upstate New York is like 30 minutes north of the city. A lot of them don't know that there's like another 4.5 hours north of the city of New York, and it's absolutely stunning up there. And I got up there and it was like September-ish, maybe, and it was, 75 degrees, sunny, it's beautiful out. I was like, yeah, this place isn't too bad. 3 weeks later, we had like 4 feet of snow on the ground. I was like, holy shit, where am I? It would snow so much up there. I remember we'd get lake effect snowstorm, and I shit you not when I say lake effect snowstorm is no joke. It would snow 3 feet of snow in an hour, and that's not even an exaggeration. I have plenty of people that will back that up. It is so cold that when you do your initial issue up there, you get all your equipment and stuff, and they give you, thousands of dollars worth of cold weather gear. We're getting the new Gore-Tex. We got the sleeping bags, and we got the underlayers and the silkies and all this other stuff. And then they give you a package of wool socks, and it's just a pair of wool socks. And they split it between 2 people at each table. And we're like, what the hell are these socks for? They're like, well, break open the package. You take 1 sock and you give 1 sock to your buddy. Well, what the hell is this sock for? And they're like, well, that's to put on your dick when you go running outside so your dick doesn't freeze off. Is you serious, man? Like, you want me to put a wool sock on my dick so my dick doesn't freeze off? All right. Well, it was cold enough that I mean, it was cold enough in Fort Drum that Alaska units used to come over there cold weather train. It got really cold. And by really cold, I remember one time it was like minus 72 with the wind chill. And we're doing PT or running thigh deep snow. Yeah, the weather up in Fort Drum is no joke. We used to say that there were only two seasons there. It was winter and 4th of July. That was it. When it rained, the rain was like ice. Um, yeah, loved Fort Drum though. Loved it. Had so much fun up there. Right after I got to Fort Drum, we went to, excuse me, having a crazy throat tickle night. Anyways, when I got to Fort Drum, it was late 2000. This is still pre 9/11. We went to my first deployment from there. We went to NTC, I believe, National Training Center out in California, Fort Irwin. Went out there for like a month, I think it was, to the box. Go out there, play war games. We were our unit was one of the first units to have hands on the new Javelin system when it came out, and so we had some dudes out there with us that were helping us test this new weapon system. Super cool. It was a tank killer, is what it was. It was a rocket system, had dual boosters. So one booster popped it out of the tube, the next one, shot it into the air and came down on top of a tank. Totally cool, like playing a video game on, like with your little heads-up display. Spent, I think it was like a month out in NTC. The next deployment, I think, right after that, we came back, refitted, got desert uniforms because we went to Sinai, Egypt for 6 months. We left probably July, August-ish timeframe of 2001 and went to Sinai, Egypt. The mission in Egypt is a peacekeeping mission. So it's peacekeeping is a base. You have a north camp and you get a south camp. South camp's down by the Red Sea. That's where we were located. They were put in place like in the 80s, I think it was when they started the multinational force and observers, which is what it is. There's like 11 or 13 different countries that man these bases. And you got the Canadians, you got the Fijians, you got Italians. They were the Navy. You had Brits, all kinds of different nations that were on these bases. And the mission was a peacekeeping mission between Israel and Egypt. Did 6 months in Egypt. I was also lucky enough to be a member of the Scout Platoon, which also put me as a lifeguard on the Red Sea for 6 months. My uniform was board shorts and flip-flops. That's how you want to spend your time in Egypt on the Red Sea. Yeah, it's hot, but man, it was like the Red Sea is like the third best diving in the world. So coral reefs everywhere, exotic fish everywhere, sharks, stingrays, manta rays, whale sharks, you name it, we saw it. The place is absolutely stunning, absolutely amazing. And our little tiny camp, South Camp, was located between an Italian resort on one side and an Italian resort on the other side. And so we got, privileges. We'd leave base every night if we wanted to, go down to town, go down to Nama Bay, go drink beer on the rooftop of the Camel Dive Club, walk around the shops. It really was, one of those things that like, that's not something I'll ever get to do it in. And it's kind of sad because it was so much fun. I loved living in Egypt. It was amazing. The people are hilarious. They always want you to, the shop owners, step in my shop, sign my book, sign my book. They always want you to sign their book so they can show their friends where you're from. They are lunatic drivers. They will drive, 7 wide on a 2-lane road without any lights, honking their horns at each other. It's just horrific riding in a cab over there. I got to go to Israel twice while in Egypt. We got to go to Eilat, Israel, which is in the very southern tip of Israel, right on the Red Sea as well, as like a, not really an R&R, just like a weekend getaway. Got to do that a couple of times. To see the pyramids there in Cairo, a massive, massive city. The biggest city I've ever seen in my life is Cairo. And then there's just these gigantic pyramids. And they're completely overwhelming to see in person. You get Bedouins pushing camels around in the desert. Mount Sinai is right there. Israel, that little slice of Israel is one that I would totally visit again. It was absolutely beautiful. We returned home. Well, let me get back. We were in Egypt when 9/11 happened, and it was like 4:30 in the afternoon when we found out. And they made us check out body armor and helmets that they even gave it to us on as lifeguards. They're like, "Here, take to this beach." I'm like, what? I'm going to wear my flak vest and a Kevlar and sit on the beach in my board shorts. All right, cool, whatever. Make weird like tan lines, but that's fine. So we were over there. We were actually the first unit in theater when 9/11 happened. They were going to send us, but we were not equipped for a wartime mission. We were equipped for a peacetime mission. So that's why we didn't go. We ended up going back home in January and refit. Went to JRTC down in Louisiana. I can't remember what the acronym stands for, the Joint Readiness Training Center or something like that. We went down there, spent a month in JRTC, and then at some point the following year, I believe we went to Fort Knox, Kentucky to do a just do a side-by-side comparison with the new Stryker vehicles that were coming out. And when we were in Fort Knox is when we got the word that, hey, we're going to go to Afghanistan in 2003. And I remember being excited about it. I know my parents weren't excited about it when I said, hey, we're going to war. And I remember telling my dad, because he's like, son, it's not something to be excited about. And I was like, well, I'm kind of excited because, that's what we train to do. And I was like, if you practiced football every single day for 4 years and you never got to play a game, that would kind of suck. It's like, this is what we practice for every single day. This is our game. So it was exciting to find out that we were finally going to go do something. Yeah, it was war, but you don't really think about that. Like when you go over there, I don't know. It's hard to explain. It's not like, oh, it's war. We haven't had war since Vietnam or Persian Gulf rather, which wasn't really a war. It was, a 100-hour conflict. So this had already been happening for like 2 years when we got the call. We were the 4th unit deployed over there. We were OAF 4. We went to Bagram. I think we split our unit up. At some point, we sent like a platoon down to Kandahar at some point. But anywho, we got to Afghanistan in 2003, and our main base of operations was Bagram Air Base. Still living in GP mediums with wood floors, sleeping on cots. But it was fine. We didn't stay at Bagram that long. In total, I don't know, we stayed in Bagram for like 2.5 months, not even, maybe a month and a half, like total throughout the entire time there. Our first mission out of Bagram, we went to Asadabad, Afghanistan. It was way up in the far west, far eastern corner of Afghanistan. It was basically on the border of Pakistan, and it was. So if any of you know Operation Red Wings happened in 2005 when Marcus Luttrell got rescued Asadabad was the base that they took him to. That's how far up into the mountains, and it was the Hindu Kush Mountains. It was we were the next range over from where K2 was, the second highest mountain in the world. I mean, we were in the mountains. Absolutely beautiful up there. Big river running right through Asadabad. After Asadabad, we ventured farther, deeper into the mountains, and we went to this place called Nangalam, and this place was remote. Um, I mean, the valley only got like 4 or 5 hours of sunlight during the day. I mean, it was just deep, huge, huge mountains. And we got to sit on top of those mountains a lot. My job in the Scouts, I was one of 3 snipers in our battalion, eyes and ears of the battalion, commander. Anytime we weren't doing missions, we usually had 2. we had a 19-man platoon. We had 3 teams. 2 teams would be out on OPs, and then the team that was back on R&R or whatever you want to call it, on refit, would be the personal security detail for our company commander and our battalion commander. So anytime they left the wire, we were the drivers. If we went on a mission, we were the drivers for the BC and the CO. Which, shout out to Jeremy Pfeiffer. Need to get you on the show. Tell your story, brother. I think a lot of people would love to hear your story, even past 10th Mountain Division and everything you did after that. We went up to Nangalam, climbed a lot of mountains, got a lot of rockets shot at us. People are like, "Oh, what's it like being in a war?" Sitting on the side of a mountain, watching a village, and you got to take a dump. So you take your e-tool, you walk up the mountain, dig a little hole, set up your e-tool as a sturdy base, and drop trout and get rocket shot at you. Run down, call for fire. Everything quiets down, so you go do it again. Get rocket shot at you. Go back down, call for fire. And, you do this 3 or 4 times. This actually happened. We were getting a rocket attack in Nangalam at the base. We were trying to call for fire. I had to take a shit. And so every time I would pull my pants down, it was like a big white flag to the Haji to shoot more rockets at us. At least that's what I think. Backtrack to our base in Asadabad. We had 3 OPs in Asadabad. 2 of them were manned by the scout team, and 1 was manned by one of the other platoons. It was across the river. But we had Shiloh and Bull Run that we manned. And I remember that was the first, like, oh shit moment. Like, this shit's real. We're actually here. There's people that actually want to kill us. I had just gotten off of watch and was getting ready to get in my cot. And I think I had just laid down, and our little OPs were nothing but stacked rocks, really. We didn't really have sandbags. We didn't have overhead cover at a lot of them. And this one was stacked rocks. It was like an old house had fallen down or something. I don't know what it was. But I remember that was the first night that shit got real. And I had just laid down. I didn't even think I took boots off when we were on OPs. But I had just laid down, and from behind me in the rock wall, there was, like, you could hear the hiss and then the explosion. They had shot an RPG at our position. And we picked up our weapons, and somebody jumped on the 50 cal, and we started laying hate back up the mountain. And I wish I could get some of the guys on here to tell their side of the story down at our main fob. They were going to call for fire, but it was danger close. They went ahead and called for fire anyways. Dropped some big bombs on little people. That was the first night that shit really got real. Was there in Asadabad. Returning fire in the face of the enemy, that kind of thing. But yeah, everything turned out all right. No injuries that night. No casualties. No injuries. It was a good firefight. Quick one, really quick. Um, so back to Nangalam, way up in the mountains. I mean, these people were remote, and like by remote, they didn't know that Russia had invaded and had been in Afghanistan for 10 years. They had no idea. This place was out in the middle of nowhere. We spent, I don't even know how long we spent in Nangalam. It was fairly quick, I think, because we packed up and we'd go back to Bagram every once in a while to do laundry and refit and eat real food, kind of a thing. And then we went to Ghazni province. We went out there. We took over a Taliban or Al Qaeda like training facility and made it our base of operations. And we set it up, and it turned out to be really nice. I mean, we had showers towards the end of it. We had a weight room or workout area, whatever you want to call it. We had a volleyball court of all things. That was at one point was when my team got sent back to Bagram to refit, and that's the time that I remember. I won't ever forget the date. It was January 29th, 2004 was the day that one of our teams went out to help some combat engineers who had come across a cache of weapons. And as they were trying to decide, I think they were trying to blow it in place is what they were trying to do. The cache blew up, killed 3 of our team members that day. Sean, Justin, and Rob. That's a day I'll never forget. I share it every day, every year on the anniversary. Losing your friends in battle is something that is hard to do. Having a friend die is hard to do, but losing a guy that you've basically slept next to, ate with, and hung out with for almost 4 years solid is really hard. And next time you meet a veteran or a service member, don't ask them if they've killed somebody. Don't ask them if they lost somebody, because chances are they probably have, one or the other. And it's just thank them for their service. That's all. They don't ask them the personal shit. They'll tell you if they want to, but a lot of times they're not going to want to talk about it. After Rob and Justin and Sean died, the rest of the deployment was kind of a blur. I know we stayed in Ghazni for a while. We returned in like late spring of 2004, I think it was, because I actually had to extend my time in the military for a month in order to ETS or get out of the military. I wasn't going to reenlist. I was going to just get out, call it good. And I actually had to extend for a month in order to ETS once we returned home. After the military, I floated so many jobs. I mean, if you can name a job, chances are I've done it between 2004 and like 2016. And it was like I would spend about a year, if that, at a job, and then say this job sucks. I'm going to go do something else. And I did that for several years. In 2016 is when I decided I wanted to go be a firefighter, because that's what people do when they're old like I am. I think I was in my 30s when I decided I was going to be a firefighter. And I did an internship in Lake of the Ozarks. And this internship, you have to live at the fire station. And you have to run calls, and you don't have to pay to go through the academy. And because of that, they allowed you to stay in the fire station for free. Um, so I did my fire academy through there. Um, ran a lot of fire. Look at this, like, I mean, we ran a lot of fire, but it was a small fire district, but there's a lot of mutual aid, so a lot of fire, helping other departments out with fire calls. So we ran a lot of fire down there. Ran a lot of car wrecks, a lot of messed up things. Um, Next week's guest, or three guests rather, surprise, were guys that I went through the fire academy with. It's going to be a great episode. I can't wait for that one. Anyways, so I did an internship at this fire department, Lake of the Ozarks. I lived there. Um, Once I felt my internship was kind of towards an end, and I didn't really have anywhere else to go, I applied for another fire department there in the lake, and moved to the north side of the lake. And I was only there for like 6 months. In that time, I got married, and we decided that we didn't want to live in Missouri anymore. And I mean, I only stayed at the department for like 6 months, and we packed our shit and we moved to Michigan. Went to Michigan for a year ish or so, whatever it was. Love Michigan, miss Michigan. Um, didn't stay there long because I got an offer to be a firefighter back in Branson, Missouri. So back to Missouri we go. Even though we said we didn't want to live there, we moved back. Was in Branson for a little over 4 years as a firefighter. Yeah, don't run a lot of fire in Branson. Mainly because we have really good fire marshals and um, really good code. You run a lot of medicals, a lot of old people, a lot of drugs, a lot of overdoses. Branson's a weird place. It's a different place. We go to Branson a lot. My parents live down there. My wife's parents live down there. So we go to Branson a lot. So I'm not knocking Branson. I like Branson. Just it's a weird place. Um, had our first kid in Branson, and then I had our second kid in Branson. We decided Branson wasn't a place that we wanted to raise our kids. So I found a job in Kansas City, doubled my pay, which always helps when you're raising kids. So we loaded up again and moved to the Kansas City area. Worked at a job for, I don't know what it was, like 4 years or something like that. I can't remember. Maybe one day I'll get into that story. It ended kind of fucked up uh, because I ended up taking a job where I'm currently at in law enforcement. I'm a deputy sheriff in the Kansas City area. And that's what I do currently. So, re-enlisted. I re-enlisted in 2023 after a 19-year break in service. I re-enlisted into the Kansas Army National Guard. I missed the service. I missed the uniform. That's why everybody's like, "What'd you do that for?" I was like, "What? I missed it. Shut up." Um, I am currently in a process of leaving the Kansas Army National Guard and transferring into the Kansas Air National Guard, basically to get a better quality of life. I'm too old to sleep on cots and closets on drill weekends at the armory, um, and I need a job that it's not that it's physical. I like what I do, but maybe something that translates more to real life kind of a thing. So yeah, so that kind of brings us up to where the hell I'm at now. Um, it's been an adventure and I think I have a pretty good background to run this podcast, which I love. I love doing my podcast. And in my trailer video, I told you guys that, or in my trailer episode, I told you guys that I really wanted to start doing this, and it's been a long process to get here. I didn't know how to start. I didn't know how to, keep it going. Again, like I said, I'm winging it. I'm doing my episode tonight because I had a lot of cancellations. There's been a lot of people that have backed out. They're like, I don't want to tell my story now. Um, I respect that. I know that not everybody wants to put their life out there for everybody, but it's not putting your life out there for everybody. It's just sharing stories, and they don't have to be serious stories. They can be stupid stories, like duct taping people's hands to their ammo cans full of boot polish in the middle of the night in basic training. It's dumb shit like that I really want to get out, and those are the stories that I want told before they're forgotten, that kind of thing. So if you know somebody that's got a great story, or you want to tell your story, please reach out to me. My episode tonight, I'm not really getting into a lot of like the stories. That is like, it's just my life path of how I got here. I'm going to interject a lot of my stories in with other people's stories, because I like that banter that we get from my stories and their stories, and how they connect and how they intermingle. So if you've got a story, or you just want to sit down and have a drink and tell dumb shit all night, that's fine with me too. I don't even care. And I'm sure it'll be great. Eventually I'm going to start video recording these so you guys can see my pretty face, or that may get rid of some of my subscribers. That's fine. It's whatever. But I just wanted to give you guys a little snapshot into where I came from, how I got here, why I'm dumb enough at 46 to still be a specialist in the Army, because I'm dumb, and nobody ever said that infantry guys were smart. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. I did just ramble for damn near an hour, but that's fine. It'll be fine. So again, if you got a story, or you know somebody who does, please reach out. Let's keep the chaos going. I'm loving what's coming out of the podcast. I think a lot of you guys are too. I'll try to be better on social media. I'm really dumb when it comes to that kind of stuff. So if you got tips or tricks or whatever, let me know. I'm trying to keep things up to date for you guys as well. So again, I appreciate every single one of you. And I may from now on refer to all of you that are listeners as the Dirty 30 Club. Go ahead, start a Discord, start a web page, start a Facebook page. I don't care. And you guys can talk about me to each other, and it'll be hilarious. Anyways, everybody, I hope you had a safe holiday, safe Christmas, and I hope you have the best new year that you can.